Hi there, my name is Matt. I thought I would do a quick response because it's faster than typing, and it also proves that I'm not an AI bot of some kind. So, this was a good question, and I see this myself. Hi, fellow PMs, what skills will be required, be needed to stay relevant as AI gains traction? And he's asking, I see this too, right? Include AI offerings in some other way to stay competitive. Yeah, this is often coming down from the board of directors, depending on the company or the leadership. I've heard this myself personally from people that ran some companies that said the board is telling us to do this because if we don't, our stock price is going to go down. And yeah, sometimes that's what happens. You know, I don't think it's going to be like Bitcoin craze, the whole thing that happened a few years ago. I think AI is going to be here to stay, and I think people are getting an understanding that they have to figure out what to do with AI. But at the same time, as engineers, product people, we're kind of averse to just integrating something in just for the hell of it, right? So here's how we work, what I do typically. I was like, what problem are you trying to solve? Right. And for me, for the kind of work that we do at my company, we'd never want to integrate in AI just for the sake of it. But there are good reasons to do it. And it does solve some problems that were typically very hard before. But we do try to kind of reframe the conversation from what I would say is like, you know, AI theater, and like, what can we throw it into to actually figuring out like what job are you going to be able to solve with it? What problem are you going to solve? You always start with the problem, right? And then can it do it in a better, faster, or cheaper way, right? And that's a good way to kind of reframe it with the leadership, because then you are trying to figure out that it's the right integration. You could integrate in AI in a multitude of ways that are non-valuable and not going to move the needle for, whatever the board or the leadership thinks is going to move the needle for, right? Now, look, it may well be that they have a business goal and they have a legitimate issue where they say all their competitors are integrating in AI. We've got to integrate it in too. And that may be the mandate, right? And that can happen. But you can still look at it and say, well, let's try to, we could do it many ways. What's the way that's really going to solve a problem and address if you could look at how competitors are doing, it may give you some ideas, but realistically, you've got to go back and talk to users and figure out what are they doing, and maybe they're already using AI in another way. So for example, maybe in your application, they could be taking data out, copying it out, going to ChatGPT or going to Claude, pasting it in, doing things, and then bringing data back in, right? And that could already be happening, and you just have to talk to users and figure out how are they using AI, and then realize that maybe there's a way to integrate it in so that they don't have to jump out of your application and jump back in again. So, those are ways to think about it. But I'll tell you the other thing to remind leadership about is that it's not for free. This is the challenge, I think, with Gen AI, is that it's too easy, right? It kind of gets you in the beginning, like heroin, I guess. So you come in and you start writing in English, right? There's no language to learn. You write in your native language, you ask it to do something. It seems like magic. And then, if you're doing some kind of proof of concept or you're just, at a playground trying to figure it out, you realize, oh, great. Wow, it does the thing I want it to do. And then that's where you get into the deep end, because then the management says, great, now go integrate it into our application. And now you're in the deep end of the pool, right? You have a challenge with data security. Are you going to let data go out to a commercial language model vendor? What does the performance look like? You've got governance issues. Oh my gosh, there's a lot that comes up. I mean, even the models themselves, right? If you're using a commercial model, if you're using an open model that you're running on your own hardware, that can be a bit better, right? And you can certainly, there's a lot of value in doing that. Not to mention the cost alone, but also the fact the model doesn't change. When you go to a commercial vendor, those models are changing behind the scenes, right? You don't have any control over that. It's not just, I'm not talking about new models being released, but even the same model can be changed over time, and there's no version control for that, right? So it's all stochastic. I mean, not only do you have to worry about, hey, getting the model to respond in the same way time over time, just based on the prompt that you put in or the set of prompts or the things like that, but also, the model changes behind the scenes. So how do you continually evaluate the performance of something like that? So this is all part of the conversation to have with leadership that they may not understand themselves. So when they say go integrate AI, they may not realize what they're asking. But even if you do go down that path, those are some of the challenges you have to deal with. And the fact that there's also the UX itself, right? Do you want to make everybody type everything out? Are you going to be somehow putting in guardrails to, prevent people from putting in things that they're eventually going to put on YouTube and show, like, look what this application did, and it started swearing at me, right? I mean, you've got to. There's a lot of things to be concerned about there. So it's ambiguity to manage. Anyway, now I feel like I'm kind of scaring you away. The second question you had, which was a good one, a widespread concern about engineering peers. Does AI mean I'm going to be losing? No, I don't think that's the case. But I'll talk about product in particular. Product management, I would say, actually probably has a more solid future, because in the end of the day, there's many other pieces of the flow in product development that are becoming automated. But defining the requirements of what this thing has to do, what the problems are, and how are you going to solve them, that is largely still a human problem that we have to go and figure out, because usually we're building applications for other humans, and it takes a person to go and figure out what are the challenges, what are they. Now, granted, many of the AI tools are accelerating how fast you can do this stuff, and helping you to brainstorm ideas and come up with maybe interview questions and things like that, and to help you along with that process. And it does make some of that job faster. But ultimately defining the requirements, I think that's going to be largely a human issue, at least in the near to midterm. And there's always, for any of these parts of the flow, there's always going to be at least oversight. And there's certainly not a desire right now by companies. Well, there's some desire, but ultimately you're going to have a human in the loop for all of these activities, I think, for the foreseeable future. This is not going to become fully automated where everybody doesn't have a job anymore and you just press a button and things come out. There's always going to be people involved, and I think the jobs are going to be changing. I do think that's the case. Anyway, this is why I made a video and did not type it all. But hope it helps, and have a good day.